Hello all and welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about what I think is one of the most underrated plugins in Obsidian. So in contrast to the rather long and in-depth video I did last about minimal note taking, this is going to be more of a quick kind of single plugin fix or enhancement that you can use inside your vault if you think it's going to be something that will help you out. So I started using folder notes back when it was a really small plugin. I'm talking maybe 10,000, 15,000 downloads in the plugin store, with the largest plugins these days being on something like 2.5 million, 3 million downloads. So quite a hidden gem. But without further ado, I'm gonna move things on slightly quicker today and take you over onto the computer screen here and just show you what folder notes is, what it does, how I use it, and why I think it's such a good plugin. Okay, so here we are in Obsidian, in my inbox note, which is an example of a folder note. So first of all, I'm going to take you into Obsidian settings and show you folder notes. We'll go into community plugins. Folder notes is just here. So we'll have a read of the description. Plugin for the note-taking app Obsidian, which we're in here. Attaching notes to folders, so you can click on the name of a folder to open the note, like in the app Notion. So this is just a very kind of basic explanation of how this plugin works, but we'll go into the options now and explore. Perhaps I should show you an actual example of a folder note first. So what this plugin does is, when you don't have the plugin installed, all of these folders in the navigation act as folders. So if you were to just click on one, then you see all of the notes coming up like you do just here. I'm deliberately clicking on this arrow at the side of the folder as opposed to on the actual name, because when you have the folder note plugin installed and you click on the folder, then you're brought into what's called the folder note, which is simply a note stored inside of the folder of the same name as the folder. So this note is called Online Business, the folder is called Online Business, so this is the folder note for this folder, and you can see that I've got all of the details of this certain project inside of the folder note, and we'll come up with another quick example here. We'll go into this one. So you can see this project I've done slightly less with, but it's still a folder note, and this is really useful in being able to search for notes and folders within the kind of the search mode. Also, if I wanted to perhaps open the inbox quickly and I didn't want to scroll all the way down to it on the sidebar here and then open the inbox and then find whichever note in the inbox I'm looking for, I could instead, now that I've got a folder note, and I'll show you how to make one in a bit, now that I've got a folder note there, I can just open up the quick switcher, right inbox, and be taken straight there and into a note that is set up with a table of all the notes underneath it in the folder, serving as an index. And this really is the kind of the crux of how I use this folder notes plugin inside of Obsidian. It's just this mechanism of being able to create indexes that give me a really useful overview of the notes content, and everything to do with the certain folder that I'm within. You can see here all the notes that are lined up are all of the inbox notes with various different pieces of content that I've decided to capture during the day within. And this, of course, requires the plugin data view, which I might do a video on in the future. But there are lots of good videos about data view out there and fewer about the folder notes plugin. So until I come up with a good video about data view, you can go out and check other people's videos on the topic. If you want a little bit more on the other plugins that I described in this video, as well as folder notes and how they all work together in the system of folders that you saw me use inside my own vault, then go to the top link in the description. I have a free course about my system in Obsidian called Parazettal, which is an actual fusion of Tiago Forte's Para method and his idea behind building a second brain, as well as Nicholas Luhmann's Zettelkasten, which is a stalwart in the space of connected notes and creation and idea generating. So if you want to know how I use both of those systems together, check out the top link in the description, and I'll give you a free course giving you the origin story and how I got into note taking, and an actual description of all of the different steps inside of my vault. But anyway, I'll dive into the settings of folder note now and show you what they are all about. So simply what the settings are just configuring differently these the way these folder notes come up on the navigation of your vault in the file explorer. And we will, in fact, I'll make one first to show you as an example. So I had a new project, I'd create a new folder first, I'd write new project, and then the next step would be, and you can see how the folders that have folder notes related to them are underlined in the navigation, and there's a setting to do with this as well that you can alter if you do want, but just you can see that this new one I've created does not have a underlining yet, meaning it doesn't have a folder note, so it's something that I will have to quickly set up to have an index so I can overlook the whole of this new project that I'm starting on. So what I do for creating a new folder note is Option click or Alt click if you're on Windows, and you can adjust this shortcut as well, but if you Alt click, you can see that this new project folder note has been created, and now it's underlined, and you can notice even though it's a folder, there's no drop down arrow yet, because folder note settings allows you to configure whether the folder note is hidden in the folder. So you can see with write lit review here, we've got all the notes to do with the lit review. So we'll open that in a new tab. We've got all the notes to do with the lit review that are in the folder index as well as in the navigation, but I've adjusted the folder note settings to make sure that the actual folder note doesn't come up again in the list underneath, because it is an actual file stored in the folder, but you can simply just click on the folder name, so it feels a little bit obsolete to have it written twice when you can just click on that there. So I'll point out where you can change this in the settings a little bit later, but we're here in the new project, and I make use of another plugin here to add the configured kind of data view table to just generally show all of the files inside the project. So again, I'll have another video coming out soon on Templator and how I do this, but it's quite simple in that I've got it configured that I can, sorry, that's the wrong one. Just from typing that, I've got quite a basic table and index set up that you can see creates a table that will begin to display notes once I start creating them inside this folder and to do with this project. So I'll give you another example here quickly. New note to do with the project, and we'll add that, and here's some note content. So we've got this example note now, and if we go back to the folder note, then you can see we've got this very quick, very easy entranceway into the notes that are captured inside of this folder in the navigation without actually having to ever open that folder or search for it. So it's really useful in terms of being able to consolidate all the work to do with one project into a single note, so you can go through and look for the certain note you're interested in. Or what I like to do with projects that might have any relevant information that doesn't deserve its own note is write other notes underneath the index list for the project. So as you saw on perhaps one of my larger projects, online business, I've got loads of notes like goals and other tracking information that doesn't really deserve its own note because it's just little points, but it's really useful to have this one place to lay out all of this information in which I could just quickly search for. So I could search for online business really quickly and it takes me straight to that folder note, which has all of the information that is suitable for an index that overlooks that project. And I've got really quickly accessible and easy entry points for any other notes to do with the project that I can quickly open and start working upon whenever I need to start doing that. So I'll take you into folder note settings now, because I think I've given somewhat of a decent outline of what the plugin does. So I'll show you all the things that you'll be able to change to do with the functionality of this plugin. So we'll go in here, and of course there's a lot of different settings that you can change, especially since the plugin's been pretty much continuously updated since I started using it. So ever since I've started using it, there's a lot more now inside of these settings than originally I was able to find, but I will find the more interesting and more important sections for you to know about, starting off with the folder note name. So the simplest and easiest way to do it is just to name the folder note the same as what the folder is called, rather than something, I mean, you could call it something consistent across all the different folders, but then that would make it harder to search for, in terms of you might want to go to your inbox and then you'd have to search in the word folder note or index and then inbox index, and it makes it a lot more complicated to search for instead of just simply typing inbox and being taken straight to the inbox. So I've always kept it as calling the folder note exactly the same as what the folder is called. And what's nice is this plugin actually keeps the two in sync with each other, so you don't have to continually go back and update the name of the folder note, update the name of the folder separately. So if you're working in the inbox and instead you want to call it quick notes or something like that, you can simply alter the name of the folder for it to be called quick notes, and then the folder note as well will change to having the name quick notes. So that's very useful. You can use a template for the folder note, which I did through using Templater, but if you're not someone who wants to add another plugin to your workflow, then you can specify a certain note in your vault that you want always to be used as template, and that might be useful for me in that the template you saw me use in the demonstration is the one that I almost always use when I'm making folder notes. So perhaps at some point in the future I'll add that template into this path rather than having to call up Templater every time. So there's that. Again, the Alt click or Option click is the shortcut to actually creating this folder note, which I mentioned briefly in the demonstration. You can change that to Control or Command click as well, but I've stuck with Alt click just because it's what it was at the start and it's what I want to keep using it as. And there you go, sync folder name. That's what I just talked about, in that the name of the folder and the folder note are normally kept in sync until you check this off. So that's just another useful feature that I like to have activated. And there are a couple of different options as well for automatically creating folder notes and creating ones for every folder. But I've gone through the more important settings for folder notes there. Aside from storage location inside the folder is what I've always gone for, and in the visual settings a little bit later I'll show you the setting that allows you to actually hide the folder note inside of the folder, which I mentioned earlier, is that you don't want it displayed more than once, because you can simply click on the folder to show what's inside of it. And we've got all of these other options at the top. In the folder overview is not something that I use, so I normally stay away with that from that. And again, we've excluded folders, so I will move on to visual settings for File Explorer, and there's what I just talked about. You can hide the folder note inside the folder, because to open it, all you've got to do is search the name of the folder or simply click on it in the navigation. So that's another quite relevant, important setting there. Underline the name of folder notes. Again, that's just to differentiate them from notes that don't have folder notes in your vault. And seeing as I have folder notes for almost every folder in my vault, it doesn't really matter to me whether I have that switched on. So you can see all the underlines have disappeared now that I've clicked that setting, and if I switch it back on, you can see all the underlines come back. Seeing as I have folder notes for almost every folder, as I said, I don't really mind whether that setting's switched on or off, but there are also other visual settings that you can add for these folders as well. So if you want them bold as well as underlined, or cursive as well, then you can alter that. So that's settings for the File Explorer. So just being able to make folders that have folder notes installed in them easily distinguishable from folders that don't is what you'd be using those settings for. And also there are similar settings up here for the path, which is not something that I normally use because it's displayed in the tab title bar, and I use a plugin to hide all of those settings. So I'll see if I can quickly get it back and show you. It might be in the plugin hider. Or perhaps in appearance. There you go, show tab title bar. So you can see up here in my folder notes, I've actually turned on the cursive settings. We'll go back to folder note settings because you can just about see the file path up there. So we'll go into folder notes, and you can alter a few settings about how you interact with your folder notes up there, so how they appear, whether they're cursive. So we'll switch that off. You can see non-cursive and back on again, or you can make them bold or underlined. So it's just a few more visual settings for that part of Obsidian, which I don't actually normally have activated through appearance, but it's similar to how you control the appearance in the File Explorer, just simply in the file path at the top of your note instead. And that takes us pretty much to the end of the video. I've dragged it on just a little bit more as I kind of got a bit carried away with showing all the settings of this plugin, but in terms of just creating those indexes and having such a useful, functional, but really simple plugin to do so, it's up there with one of the most indispensable features in Obsidian. So I'm very much grateful for this plugin. I've actually donated a little to the development of it, which is not something as a student who doesn't make much money that I've actually done with any other Obsidian plugin, aside from paying a little for the Catalyst license for the app in itself. So that just shows you how much this plugin actually means to me in the function that it provides, and the actual extension of Obsidian that it brings to my workflow, because these folder notes and just having a quick index to be able to access things from and display all the related notes and lists of other files inside the folder is just so useful, instead of having to type into the search bar or trawl through the File Explorer to find these things. So until next time, thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.